be as authentic as possible and remember. It's actually like a remembering who you really are, where you are more spontaneously just able to respond to life in an authentic way versus some kind of prescribed script. I have this little Zen trick I share, and that is you take the backward step and take the one seat. There's so much to the power of vulnerability because it's unsettled, it unseats us. There's a heart intelligence and then there's a gut intelligence. It's wonderful to be able to be at our optimal performance. The heart it comes from a place of wholeness. It's an undivided experience. Come back home to yourself and feel the undivided nature inside and live from that place and play from that place and create from that place.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Susanne Marie, a renowned meditation spiritual guide, someone that's been studying the personal experience behind our thoughts and who we are for a lifetime, and excited to get to unpack in this discussion more about her journey, who she is, what she's learned along the way. And hopefully there's some jewels sprinkled throughout the conversation that you may find beneficial.
Hi, thanks for having me on your program.
Thank you, Susanne. And we were just talking before, it seems coincidentally that we're both born in the same country and in the same city.
I know. Germany, Frankfurt. And we both have German moms. That's incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is a small world. What a cool
It
coincidence.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
So excited to learn more about you and just kind of, I came across some of your videos. The algorithm kind of works in mysterious ways, right?
Wow.
And I just loved, a lot of the topics around just the integration of self. It's a personal journey of mine to either it's mastering who we are or it's allowing and kind of becoming who we are. And
Right.
I felt as I listened to you that there's a lot that you've learned in the container of who we are as a being and our life journey. So I'd just love to maybe start there. Like, what's the journey been like that you've been on and becoming who you are today?
Yeah. Well, I like what you said. There's a third one, which mastering, becoming, and then there's the and they correspond with this third one, and that is unbecoming. So returning back to your original nature, to touch in on the authentic self, which we're born with. So to retrace your steps back to that kind of the one that maybe gets lost in the world over time as we grow up. So that's why it's kind of an unbecoming, and have what we really are, the authentic self, which is touching in on the one that isn't a personality, isn't made from a construct,
Mm-hmm.
and have it be more that this is really what they call in spirituality true nature, your true nature. So it's it's kind of like returning back to innocence, and where you are more spontaneously just able to respond to life in an authentic way versus some kind of prescribed script, and some of that's even well, unconscious, how deeply we become a personality. We form identity, right? And don't we all love being with certain people where we feel like we can be ourselves more?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. and just relax and just kind of drop the any defenses or any masks, just try to be as authentic as possible. And remember, it's actually like a remembering who you really are.
It sounds like in a state I was reading Anthony DeMello this morning, and the passage was around not seeking the judgment, approval, or disapproval by others. So when you say like the
Yeah.
familiarity that we have with our kinship, our family, our close friends,
Mhm.
when we can just like kind of like allow that surface level identity or yearning for approval, disapproval. Anthony DeMello kind of talks about it in his last meditations. It's that freeing of yourself where you can get back to the quality of how he describes it of being fearless and
Mm.
free at the same time.
Mm. Lovely. Yeah, free to be me, free to be you, free to be. Um, it does take courage. It is sort of a fearless kind of quality, because what makes us kind of contract and kind of resort to prescribed ways of being, concepts and beliefs, and how we're supposed to be with others, how we're supposed to be in life, how we're supposed to present ourselves. That arises out of having sort of lost touch with our essence, the essentialness that we are. And so when we've lost touch, what else is there to do but sort of become um, a something, a something. And so to actually not be a something, to be more in the innocence of, I don't know what I am really. I don't know how I'm supposed to be in this moment. I don't know who I'm supposed to be with you. We can return to the unknown versus the known. The something is the known. And returning to an unknown is where spontaneous action and spontaneous responding just can take place, an authentic responding that isn't scripted.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really like kind of like that what spirituality that to me is useful, the kind of useful spirituality is where we can return back to before we became something and thought that we had to lead with something other than what we really are, who we really are.
How does that layer up with when you come back? Is that what you would kind of say is the realm of the unknown, kind of analogous to God, or the depths of the unconscious contents of who we are, where things just kind of spring from the primordial kind of chaos of nothingness, and then that uh how does that just kind of come up, I guess, in your words?
Hmm. Well, what even though it's kind of like a stepping back from the known, it isn't a blank unknown. It's an unknown that has contains wisdom. It contains knowing in it. It contains what is real and true right now. So having a conversation that's not scripted like we're doing, and just accessing this kind of place inside that just is responding and is being truthful as much as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that's an alive quality. That's alive. And and there's nothing like not living from a place that's not alive, to feel dead inside, to feel um to bring on actually a lot of the problems of society, depression and so on, when we're not really being our natural selves as much as possible. We're going to start to feel like something's not being fulfilled.
Mm. There's a someone I listened to that did a video on a book, the Necominion. So it might be butchering the title, but it's from Aristotle, and it talks about like the idealized, like best life that someone can live, the best human
Mm-hmm.
life. And I think what you're saying is that there's a component of natural spontaneity meets your ability to thrive in the mechanics of the world, because we all have a function of our careers or our work and responsibilities beyond that, in our adjacent families. And I think those all create this kind of like energy whirlpool of demands, which
Mm-hmm.
are like kind of judgments, right? They're like webs, judgments around your like inner cocoon of, hey, you have to direct your energy and you have to kind of like balance the way you present yourself in a in an organized way. And what was
Mm-hmm.
fascinating is the video, how it kind of came out at the end of the the contemplation of life is one of those prime ingredients, and it was an
Mm-hmm.
aspect of living a modest life that had enough goods and security to be able to take care of yourself, and finding ample time for pleasure, but not too extreme, with
Mm-hmm.
a philosopher mindset and an equal scientist pursuit of ideas, or combination thereof.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense, I guess, in your worldview? And how would you describe the best human life?
Um, yeah. So for that person who was describing what's for them of value, um, for me, I think that from an early age, what was would lead to the best life would be feeling my self connection, connected to myself. And I did that through self care and learning how to love myself and accept myself as I am, and open to learning how to meet what's uncomfortable inside. And I went on a huge journey: yoga, meditation, body work, interpersonal connections, connected with nature. Nature is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the best kind of life for me is feeling self-connected and remain true to myself in the midst of moving through life. And if, say, living in a certain place, and if I'm starting to accrue too many things, if I start to feel a loss of self-connection, then that would be I would know what to do. Or if I was had a certain friend or a partner or whatever, and I started to feel like some soul loss, or you know just remaining true to myself, then I would reorganize, and I do still reorganize my environment in order to remain true to what's most important to me. And I think that it's not a selfish thing to prioritize um, having inner equanimity as much as possible, and staying valuing being as much in harmony within as possible. Doing what you can for it. It's not going to be perfect, right? Sometimes work gets a little out of balance. Sometimes we need to work more on a relationship or something.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, this is this is one's own life. It's a very precious thing. And who does that person who's in our life want to be connected with something that is out of balance, something that's not remaining true to themselves? And if that's the case, then you have two people meeting that are maybe not living their truth together, versus two people meeting who are as much as possible being true to themselves. And then that creates such a wonderful connection through that. And the same goes for one's work. You want to be as much as possible on board and be here. See, being self connected means being here, not leaning forward out into the world. In spirituality, they call it Maya.
Mm-hmm.
Maya is imagination. The it's just it's dreamland. So when we are leaning outside of ourselves and we're not fully pulling back and trying to locate ourselves at least here in the body. I have this little Zen trick I share, and that is you take the backward step. So you take a step back from your into yourself, take a backward step, and take the one seat. So you're backward step into yourself and the one seat. So you're planted in your body, in your spine, leaning back.
Mm.
And so that can be a reminder during the day whenever you start to feel yourself being kind of more forward leaning into the world, of meet, as if you need to be outside of yourself to meet others, to do anything. And that's just a habit.
So it's the habit that we build up. I guess the consumption of like outer things and just being tied up in the processing of things. Uh, I love the kind of analogy you just gave, or the practice of like stepping back and sitting, taking the one seat.
Yeah.
You said, you didn't say sitting, you said
One seat. Yeah.
taking the one seat. Yeah, it produced
Backward step one.
an
Yeah.
interesting effect when I did it as you kind of guided that. There's this interesting feeling that I learned from Eckhart Tolle when I practiced a lot of meditation, that like inner
Mhm.
body sensation, the scanning of the inner field, right? And
Mhm.
being present to your sense of self.
Mhm.
There's this kind of locality that we have of a sense of self, and then the kind of feeling of the inner body. But then as I read through like philosophers, or through experiences of meditation, there also just feels like this very kind of like infinite grandiose kind of super self, the super ego, that is also partaking in the experience. Is that how do you make sense of that, or is that accurate, um, to distinguish between, I guess, your different perspectives?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, it's the power of attention, that is bringing you to wherever you're placing your attention. So consciousness, it 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 goes where we're placing our attention. So if we're focusing more on being in within our body energetically, as Eckhart Tolle says about, the feeling energetically presence within. That's super easy to do do if you do, for instance, like you start off by taking a backward step and the one seat, because you have to be located here to be able to feel what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you just open up the doors of awareness, the perception of, like, take a scan energetically, like a weather pattern. What's happening internally right now? Oh, there's little energy here, a little thing here, lots of things firing up here, it's like there's maybe a little, um, even dissonance or anxiety can be noticed. It's like there's just sort of a scan of what's taking place. Now, the fact that we can even do that we can scan and that we can look and notice, is that's called self-awareness, right? That's the ability to be aware, because we're aware of something. So we're aware of what's happening now. So that ability to be aware is sort of, as far as we know, just a human being thing. We don't know. I have a dog and she's very aware, but I don't know if she's self-aware. So it's this ability to be self-conscious, self-aware, to notice what's taking place. That quality is super potent, and it's kind of the big first doorway to spirituality, because that ability to be self-aware, it makes you suddenly land here in the now more, right? You're really more here. You're aware of being here. It suddenly puts you here. So we should really use that. I mean, that's the first step to being conscious, and to be going from being more unconscious to more conscious is to be self-aware. So being self-aware, there's another step that can happen after that. So first you can notice that you're noticing, right?
Hmm.
You're noticing what's taking place right now. You're noticing sounds, you're noticing that you're seeing right now what you're seeing. You're noticing what you're feeling. So wherever you put your attention, you can notice. Wherever the direction of the laser beam of your attention, that's your ability to bring consciousness, to notice your attention. So then there's another step for those who are interested in spirituality, because this is really then you going down the trail of real kind of the spirituality that I feel is useful and helpful and doesn't require any kind of beliefs, in any religions or anything. It's just the kind of useful stuff, kind of a scientific kind of spirituality, which to me is what's useful. And that is that and I'm not going to do the whole thing right now, but it's just as a pointer for people just to contemplate, like if this is not something that one is already aware of, that the fact that we're aware, that we're self-aware, means that there's something that is aware of what's taking place. So there's what you're aware of, a sensation like right now, let's say feeling, and there's the ability to be aware of that, right?
Hmm.
So that ability is where the magic lies. That ability, turning the attention on, wow, I wonder, what is that? There's something that is aware. What is that that is aware? What is that?
Is this connected with like, my experience is almost like we've got the power of intention or attention where we're kind
Mm-hmm.
of monitoring. There's a book I read that was really great about sharing kind of insights. I think it's called Mindsight. And
Mm-hmm.
it talks about the ability to monitor with our brains and modify. So we have that
Mm-hmm.
attention where we're able to sense the feeling of, hey, I'm here. And uh, that can, if you deepen and you kind of go into it without having a label, it opens up into a broad kind of field of awareness that kind of is in perpetuity that I've experienced. I haven't been able to, I guess, integrate that, full wide open ambiance in everyday life as as you're just kind of rocking and rolling through your activities. But I do think there's a feltness of that greater spirit, and that's what I kind of, I guess, describe as God, that you can feel and you can kind of communicate to this magnificence of presence that's
Mm-hmm.
that's around us, that's supporting, that's a part of us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how does this all kind of how does the feeling of awareness connect
Mm-hmm.
with our energy space like an aura, and through our social engagements, through work, through sports that we're playing? How does that, in your experience, kind of like all meld together so that you can
Mm-hmm.
perform at your absolute best?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if we don't have, it's kind of like a bird that has two wings, and one wing is optimal flying, what you're able to manifest, and the ability to be creative and to um, um, yeah, to be creative within life. And the other wing, without the other wing, it's not going to be a full bird. And the other wing is opening to that which is what you might call spirit, to the unmanifested, where everything that is being manifested arises from originally. So if we are able to access and have access, which, meditation helps, right? Contemplation, even what I just gave as an example of, that's called inquiry, what, that practice of just turning the gaze on, okay, so I'm aware of even manifesting, I'm aware of being creative right now, speaking, being engaged, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the things of life. And at the same time, or whenever possible, being aware of that which is what is aware of it. And that is the invisible spirit, magical land that is asking for our contemplation. And there's no major answer to it in the end. It's more of a diving into the unknown. So within life, there's always the mystery corresponding with what's being manifested. All everywhere, trees growing, grass growing, words appearing, babies being born, whatever. There's like the mystery of the unknown mystery. Unknown meaning it's not defined, it's undefinable. So the undefined is correspondingly co-arising with the defined. The unconditioned is corresponding arising with the conditioned. So when people, for the most part, most people are living in the manifested world and and are not in touch with the undefined, the place where everything's arising from, the unborn. This is the born, the unborn wing. Then there's sort of a deep seated, rooted kind of like a dissatisfaction and unhappiness and disconnection to source, because this is source, okay? Source, where creativity arises from. And so that's why, we've lost connection, as you know, to Mother Earth. We've lost connection to feeling our interconnection with one another, right? We're really, as a society, very lost. And it's because it's so, consciousness is so like hypnotized by the born and what I should be and make and accrue and become, all the becoming, all the becoming, all the becoming. But if it's not balanced with this mystery, the awe, which also inspires gratitude, but the awe of the magic of life, then we're going to feel sort of hollow.
Interesting. I was listening to someone, it was around like the Hebrew, kind of like Judaism, the Torah, and some of the books in the Torah. Someone going down the kind of like mystical aspects of it. And they mentioned that the awe is, like you just said, almost linked with the unmanifested, linked with God, linked with the, I guess, pure potentiality. And so it almost sounds like what you're saying. And I love the analogy. I have never heard beautifully said that reality is like a bird, two winged bird. And one side is the
Mm-hmm.
optimal desire for navigating physical circumstances, while the other is
Mm-hmm.
the unconditioned, unborn, unmanifested. That
Mm-hmm.
is uh, is the equal counterbalance. That's almost like trying to communicate. If you
Mm-hmm.
could assume that we have souls, if you were to make
Mm-hmm.
like that statement, like we have a soul, it's almost like that's the
Mm-hmm.
other side of the wing that's trying
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
influence and direct through our dreams, through our sense of alignment, our
Mm-hmm.
instincts and urges. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we, like I got from the Aristotle kind of book that I was tuning into, it's that contemplation that helps
Mm-hmm.
us let go of the kind of directness of the Maya experience of life, and
Mhm.
to feel back into grace, into awe, into letting our minds kind of tune into that state of I want to say chaos, but it's not chaos. It's otherness, just the other side of ourselves, like where our soul resides, or whatever is
Mhm.
trying to communicate to us to guide us on the
Mhm.
bridge of life and what we're here to accomplish along the way.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I would you can it's a lovely way to label it as, say, soul, and then, I mean, throughout time, mystics, including Jung, Carl Jung, and, Meister Eckhart and all kinds of mystics throughout time have touched on, spoken about soul in their way. And for those who don't want to use soul, they can call it mystery or divine intelligence. There's something at work here. There's a web of intelligence that's taking place. It's impossible to not see that. Even very linear-minded scientists would say that there is some kind of intelligence to the workings of the universe and in nature and all that. And then, as you may know, I'm sure that scientifically they discovered that within all matter, within every atom, it's empty. It's empty at its core. So to me, that's the other wing of the bird. So within matter, in the center of it, within it, is this empty center. So within everything that is appearing, it's empty at its core, which is to me the mystery, which is the spirit, which is that pure potentiality that you mentioned. And from there, what Matt can be, what can be, is birthed, right? That's to me. It's interesting how scientifically it's proven that nothing is as it seems. It's not just manifestation. It is made of these dancing particles, and it's not even solid. It's not even solid, and it's more empty than actually solid. They say the particles of materiality are actually, they're just swimming in this vast sea of emptiness surrounding it all. And so when you open to spirit, when you open to soul, when you open to the mystery, to in a sort of innocent way of like awe, the awe is actually how to get there. One way is, to be honest, I don't know. Like, it's a wonderful portal. I don't know what's true. I don't know where we come from. I don't know what this place really is, and come to the innocence of it. Um, it puts the mind into a place of letting go, letting go the need to know. And when you let go, you let God. Let go, let God.
Yeah.
So you let go, and then you're suddenly in that kind of like presence of undefinedness, of that other wing of the bird. The I don't know really helps bring you there. Yeah.
And again, it gives you a humbleness. I think it humbles you. It kind of like lowers your
Mhm.
pride or ego self that's
Yeah.
trying to know it all and to be able to decipher the mystery.
Mhm. Yeah.
There's also times just like letting go has been so important. You can have just
Mhm.
a rough week. You could be like dealing with all these, company challenges, things in life. And I mean, there's just been so many circumstances where going out and just being like, oh, I'm just gonna like let go and just like let loose, and just like what a freeing
Mhm.
up of blockages and entanglements that are kind of in your nervous system, in your field of awareness, which is
Yeah.
like you're saying, matter is all empty space. Well, we're in these body suits that we have. So if that's all empty
Mhm.
space, really at its like most uh, tiniest aspects, perspective, when you really get down to the pebbles and the small, tiniest specks of who we are, it becomes
Mhm.
empty space. It becomes spaciousness. I mean,
Mhm.
it's amazing then what the power of our thoughts, the power of our intentions, um, when we can oscillate between the needing for things to be a certain way, but also trusting and just allowing that other intelligence, the other side of life, that's working
Mhm.
just in wonders. And I think reveals itself more as you like examine and getting older, even personally in my life. It's like you kind of examine the seasons of life that happen, and how the energies of the new month or the new quarter that you're in can almost like really dictate a whole new adventure, a whole new expression, uh,
Mhm.
and a whole new unknown. Really, like it's kind of, it's always like I I think about like, in a way I don't know fully how everything's gonna unfold. The direction of life, and I'm still figuring out. Like I think everybody is, but it's exciting that the unknown part of us is guiding, and we just really got to look forward to what's around the corner.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so what's interesting is that that unknown, it something over time, if we keep opening to it, and keep going there and learning how to relax and let go and into that space of, it's kind of a space of wonder, really, right? The awe, the wonder, but of just like, it is a letting go of holding the steering wheel of navigating life. This is me doing this. It's the opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no me there. It's just, I don't know, and just let go into the flow. The only way to let go into flow in that way is to not really be driving. Because if we're driving, then we're pushing the flow. We're not in the flow. So, but over time, as we start to recalibrate and just sort of, we create new neural pathways of, it's not only about navigating and being in the driver's seat, but there's another neural pathway of knowing how to relax into the stream, of letting the stream take you and trusting it. A lot of it's about trust, because the other one's really about being in control. So what's the opposite of control? Is letting go, right? Trusting. So the more that you can do that, it's kind of like, it's a very yin kind of experience, yin and yang, if you want to express it in that way. Yang would be, I'm manifesting and using those qualities of yang qualities, which we all have. And the yin, which we all have, is more passive. It's more of a silence. It's more of relaxing and not being in the driver's seat. So as we practice that other wing of the bird, which is the entering that mysterious place of the unknown, and through meditation, through being in nature and relaxing the boundaries of yourself, whatever you use, so many ways. Dance. I used to be a dance a lot, and just let go, even maybe a good kind of hike or whatever it is, where you're no longer, you're just in this pure natural functioning of, rather than being a doer in that moment. You're just relaxing and allowing doing to happen. So it starts to, that pathway, just like a trail in the woods, will start to get well worn and will become more second nature. So you can fluctuate, and you can be, and it's not like a conscious fluctuating. Now I'm the doer. Now I'm relaxing. It's just, it becomes sort of it becomes second nature. It's just a natural flow between the two as needed. Even in the moment, they can correspondingly, interestingly, co-arise. Um, but that's that's like the optimum way of being functioning in life, so that while one can be wondering, I wonder where my life's going to go. I'm creating it as I go along, and I have no idea about the future and all that. There can be simultaneously a peacefulness that starts to grow inside. There's something that is always the same within the ever changing. And that something is the state of presence, the presence that is an allowance, is this other wing. There's so many words to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many words, and and one has to find one's own way of language of what applies for oneself. The mystery, the unknown, the divine intelligence, whatever, spirit, soul. So the unconditioned, unbecoming, all those words, but they all point to the same kind of place. But the thing is, it's that is always there, and is always the same. So when we access it, that's what a spiritual awakening is about. So when we access it and we live and we open to it, and it becomes abiding. I mean, it's something that's always here. One is aware of it always. Then the doing mode and becoming mode and the getting elder even and the whole life stream,
Mm-hmm.
that's the creative potential, but it isn't all that you are. Then you have this balance of having one foot in this, what is always the same no matter what age you are. It was the same when you were little, it's the same growing up, it's always been there, and it's here now. It's this part of you. And that when we are become really familiar and at home with that, it really is such a wonderful support when we make it conscious. It's here anyway, but when it becomes conscious to itself, then it's like, yeah, you know what? No matter what's happening, no matter what I go through, no matter what kind of life events happen, because they do and will, this spirit that I know myself to be, and not just as an idea, but there's really a knowing of it, is always here. And that is so supportive. I can't tell you. It makes all the difference in life.
Mm-hmm. How do you describe it? Can you describe the quality and the sense of the awareness? Is it like the expanded universe operating your physical form like a video game character where you have kind of like there's like a distance and view? Is it a different sense of you're not observing your breath? Like if you watched your breath, you're kind of navel gazing in a way. You're kind of self aware. It's not as helpful. It's great in meditation, but it's not as helpful, let's say, in collaborating or communicating. It feels like that self um, view can get in the way of a stream of a stream of content to come out naturally. How do you describe, as I kind of just postulate some ideas of how do you describe your having one foot in the unmanifested, or your feeling with the soul, the way it feels in your physical experience?
Well, so I've been pursuing feeling the integration of being self-connected since I was really young. You know, I'm going back just a second in order to maybe help remind us all, because it was my experience, but we all have something similar, and that is that growing up, as when we're a child, most of us feel still sort of self-connected, a sense of wholeness, unless one has had a lot of trauma, like a really, really difficult childhood, where that can be lost earlier. But for most people, there's sort of a an ebbing over time of feeling connected and then being lost, and then sort of being lost more and more in the world of the adult world starts to come in. This is how I'm supposed to be, and who I'm supposed to be, and who I am. And we form identity forms, which is kind of natural. It's not bad in itself. But so I was aware back then that I was starting to lose self connection. I was between 7 and 9. I mentioned it to my mom, and I was like, I told her the only way I could relate to it is I'm losing my childhood. I said that,
Wow.
7 to 9, I'm losing my childhood, and it was because I felt the encroachment of the adult world and the way that they perceived, and I saw it as unnatural because I could tell that it was a sort of fabricated. And I kept, but the truth is I kept a part of me part of me stayed protected from that. And that part went on the search of wanting to feel whole again. Because I would say that I had this feeling of feeling whole as a child. Wholeness isn't perfection. Wholeness is just you don't feel lost. You feel here. You feel part of one with everything in a way.
Hmm.
And that sort of disconnection faded over time. And so as a teen and then early young adult in my early 20s, I hit the pavement hard and ran for it, wanted it back very consciously. Back then it was before all these YouTubes and all these different things of ways of finding yourself and, spiritually, all these teachers and all that. So it's just sort of my own journey, yoga, a lot of yoga. So very embodied work I did, a lot of embodied work and meditation. I loved sitting, believe it or not. So I do feel like having a sitting practice that is actually effective, right? So spirituality to me is that it needs to give results. Um, so that's, I'm a spiritual teacher, and maybe your audience doesn't know that, but that's what I do. So now I share what it is that from my experience. I think that's best. One of the best ways to what we offer is to be offering something that is we know, whatever it is we're doing. And we all have things we know and can offer. Um, so over time, through the practices, they became refined, of course. And it's like, oh, this is what works. This doesn't work. This is what's bringing me. Could feel it like I'm coming back home. Isn't that an interesting feeling that we can actually tell? And so I would say another word for it is feeling divided. I felt divided, and I could tell when I was meditating and had a really great yoga session or whatever I was doing that would being in nature, dancing, whatever, I would feel the undivided. I would just feel in sync. And another word is in sync. I would feel in sync with myself, not separated,
Hmm.
because it feels painful to feel separated. That's where anxiety comes from. And so I used all of that in order to be able to um, find out what really works for me. And over time, returning home became abiding, meaning that it wasn't just a dipping in and out of this like stream of oneness of like I feel undivided when after a good workout. Let's just say some people might feel that way. They feel in the zone or whatever. Um, but it wasn't a coming and going anymore in the end. And that was that what spiritual, what they call awakening is really about. And but it to be abiding permanent, not just something you haven't experienced, but abiding, that's where I live now. So it is possible. It is possible. Um, and people, it does happen, but it takes uh, focus, and it takes good teaching. Like you know how just like it's like why spin your wheels for 20, 30 years. I work with people who are in their 70s and they still haven't had good teaching, good pointing. Let's just say good pointing.
Right.
Uh, and all one needs is really good pointing because we all contain the way home within ourselves. They just need to be pointed out how to do it. And so, because I think it's really our birthright, to it's people call it a spiritual awakening. Some people could call it enlightenment. I don't use that word. Um, because it sets it up as this unattainable thing, and whatever that is, as if there really is an end to growth. There isn't. Um, so I think it's just sort of how we're meant to live, which is just come back home to yourself and feel the undivided nature inside, and live from that place, and play from that place, and create from that place. To me, that was the most important thing. To others, it might be building a business and being successful, or being a really great parent, or be a master gardener, or book writer, or whatever they put their sights on, because putting where we put our attention is a power. And so for me, I place my attention on returning home inside. I don't think it needs to be where it's an either or thing, because I also parented. I also raised two children while during part of that time of going back home. So it's not an either or dichotomy. Go back home and write your book. But it does require some attention, and it also requires a desire. And you can't just, if you don't have any desire inside to, and it's just a truth telling. It's coming back to a truth, inner truth telling. What do I really want? Well, I feel anxious and unsettled and out of sorts a lot. Well, guess what? That is the state of separation. That's feeling out of sync with your nature, with spirit, out of sync. That's the manifestation. That's the body going, something's off here, because we're essentially really wonderful animals, high-powered animals. I wonderful. That's a question. That's a. I wonder about that sometimes, what we're doing,
Mhm.
but no, but we're high-level things of nature. How about that? And we have forgotten that. So, as things of nature, feeling out of sync with nature and not one with it, objectifying nature, like like not feeling connected to it, that's a problem for the animal, for our bodies. Our bodies are going to kick up a ton of anxiety, because then we're not one with our environment, and that is, imagine, that's,
Being one
creates a
with,
lot of unsettledness.
you mentioned before the yin and yang, and I was just watching Marco Polo. One of the samurai fighter instructors talks about this when Marco, um, the new servant that's in the Khan's court, enters
Mm,
and now is getting trained by like a martial kung fu master. And he talks about how you have too much yin, too little yang. Is the
mm-hmm,
Are those two the will on one end to kind of push for, and is the other, you kind of described it as a yang of waiting, not waiting or just receiving, more of like not pushing in the effort. It's more of like an allowing.
mm,
Is being in the balance, that middle, or that the polarities there, how do those
mm-hmm.
polarities interact, and what's there in the middle, and how does that feel when you balance your yin and yang perfectly?
Yeah, well, and it's never going to be always balanced. It's going to be a, a flow of sharing yin and yang with each other, and through that there is the potential for balance. So it's kind of like, now there's more yang. Qigong. Have you ever done Tai Chi or Qigong anyway?
Only,
Yeah.
in my own kind of fun way, slowly, not like in a
Mhm.
formal instructor capacity.
Yeah, yeah. It's a play of that. It's really
Mhm.
cool. It's a play of that. With Tai Chi, it's kind of like, you're bringing a yang energy in, and then there's a yin movement, and it's this sort of a sharing. Is my point. It's a sharing, and then the sharing of it creates a dynamic of potentiality of the yin and yang of the universe. How was the universe created? How is it manifested? How does it sustained? It's some kind of sharing of these forces in nature of the invisible realms and the manifested realms, right? Invisible realms, pure potentiality in a seed, then it becomes something, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this ongoing dance, really, an ongoing dance. And there may even be a time of one's life that one is more young, right? Like I'm in this, you know, pushing forward my wanting to create a career for myself, or really, you know what I mean? It's sort of a young time, but even then it's really helpful to be in to rest, to learn how to let go, right? In order to recover, in order to be able to nourish this building of something. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always needed, the yin. And then another time of one's life might be of, I have some time, I want to be more introspective, you know, I want to go into the woods, metaphorically, you know, ashram metaphorically, inner just sort of contemplation. And throughout time, people have done that, right? Contemplation. And it might be a more yin time. And it's just the season of one's life may be that it's not always in balance exactly in that moment, because maybe nothing can happen if it's totally in balance. It's kind of like it's in movement, it's in flux, you know, and it's forces, these forces that are dynamic.
Mm-hmm. And how is that just the way we are as beings? There's kind of the common thread I think everybody can say is sometimes I'm
Mhm.
up, sometimes I'm down. And I
Mhm.
kind of ebb and flow between this. Yet
Mhm.
there's the desire to be almost like perfect, zen, amazingly aligned, to be able to perform at your absolute best, to have the best morning routine, to be able to knock out an amazing 8-10 hour workday, incredibly efficient in modern days as a goal for some people. And then optimal personal time, hobby time, fitness time, the
Mhm.
nutrients that we have, everything kind of almost balanced to the best that it can be with a dash of moderation. Is it impossible to try to get to with pointers, like with the right pointers into a state of uh optimal self-expression where you've got the entire package, and it's complete and it's concrete? Or is it no, like life is kind of, it'll always find a way to kind of give you the ride of the energy
Yeah.
kind of shifting?
Yeah. There's a beauty in having life be more mysterious than living optimally, solely optimally. If it's pushing away the other wing of the bird, then it's going to be, what happens with one wing? We go in circles, you know. Um, so we're not really flying optimally. We're not really honing in on what, maybe even what we're really meant to do here. Okay, because if we're just doing the optimal and production wise, and you know, we're kind of like a machine. What you described sounded like a machine. Sorry, a well-oiled machine. um
The American dream.
um yeah, American dream. um but it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare because it's leaving out, it might seem great for a while, but it's not going to be sustainable. And the reason it's not sustainable in a lifetime, let's say one is fortunate enough to have a long lifetime, is because it's leaving out the the mystery. It's leaving out what birthed you here and where you returning to. It's um it's almost looking at life like it's a commodity versus a gift, and versus using this capacity to self reflect and to really deeply connect with Source and with ourselves and one another. It's leaving out a whole bit that is so fulfilling and fulfills you. It's not just then about fulfilling you in this optimal way of what you can get, but and I'm not hearing you that's how you live or anything. I'm just suggesting that maybe your audience or whomever's listening to this, it's and maybe they already are, but there's something about soul, and there's soul loss when we're not attentive to soul. There's soul loss, and then there's this more striving for the commodity, for the success, for whatever, because it's compensating for soul loss.
That by achieving, so it sounds like, yeah, I think there's a ideology of the American dream, um, in men, particularly the kind of like fatuation of needed to be incredibly successful, massively materially abundant to have the recognition or social approval or the connection to feel fulfilled. And it sounds like what you're pointing to is like, hey, there's a whole other side of life that's the Carl Jung unconscious, and
Mhm.
it's influencing us for reasons beyond our physical awareness that have gifts to be presented across our lifetime to us for reasons that you learn looking back at what's happened, and
Mhm.
to uh, yeah, maybe not get so caught up in the race for the material.
Yeah, absolutely. And something we haven't brought into, which really feels wanting to come forth right now, is what real love is. Connection. I spoke about self connection and self acceptance, learning how to be and self acceptance is not, meeting these places inside that are unworthy, that are just waiting for our self acceptance. And that all comes from self love, right? Finding a place of loving ourselves as we are, regardless of how incompletely perfect we are, and and opening to the magic and the mystery of what love really is. And so while people are busy wanting to fulfill that and pursue that American dream that you're speaking about, which has become sort of the dream of the planet in a way, it's kind of like a virus, um, which is, it's leaving out, like you said, a bunch of this, the mystery, the spirit, soul, but it's also something that drives us, that we want, and that we're also leaning away from, is really true love. What love is, not just so beginning here, and then with another, and maybe with just in general with others, just expression of care, empathy, all the things that come out of love, compassion, uh, nurturance, caring about the Mother Earth and what's happening to her, and our drive to want things and to achieve. Are we poisoning our own ecosystem in order to achieve that? Yes, because we don't feel connected. We've lost connection. And that's a heart thing. So it's connecting with heart. Okay, so perhaps you've heard that we have these different intelligence centers. So mind there's mind intelligence, right? And there's a heart intelligence, and then there's a gut intelligence. And they really are centers of intelligence. So it's wonderful to be able to be at our optimal performance, if you want to talk about that in that way, is to be able to have all these centers light up, to be really lit up from the heart. How does the heart perceive reality? How does the heart see what's happening right now? You can ask yourself, even, what does the heart feel about this? Like let's say one is having a disagreement with someone or a difficult moment. Rather than coming up here trying to figure it out, it's like, well, how does the heart see this? The heart it comes from a place of wholeness. It's an undivided experience. So it sees it from a wholeness. Doesn't mean you're not discerning. It just means that it sees it from a different angle. And then we have the gut intelligence as well, which is a really wonderful way to access and navigate intuition, what's, you know, and to feel into what's good for us. Like just feel and honor what the gut knows. You've heard about this. This is like out there now. Heart intelligence, gut intelligence, and the whole thing, the microbiome and taking care of the gut, because it actually is a source of intelligence. So mind, the conditional mind, there's an unconditional aspect of mind, but the conditional mind for right now, it the mind is just it's full of dualities. It just sees things as, you know, it's a great place to, it's a toolbox. It's a great place to grab a tool and say, how do I get from A to Z? How do I accomplish this goal? How am I, you know what I mean? Like doing a list or whatever. So mind has its place for sure, but it's not the best place to figure out one's life.
Yeah, I think it's common knowledge that once you can use your mind to accomplish your survival basic needs and you have enough security and resources, when you go up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it becomes like you move from this intelligence to what's my connection with my community? What's my self purpose?
Hmm.
What's my connection with the world, with
Hmm.
legacy for individuals that that really feel like, hey, I want to be remembered for a long period of time. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, we have these like different intelligences, and they're either in alignment or disalignment. And we've talked about a lot of like aspects today, right? There's the self love, there's the unmanifested and kind of being rooted in physical awareness, there's letting go. There's kind of like this whole toolbox of, all these different energies. And how would you say, like, what's the integration approach to all of this? Like, if you had to boil it down to like, the kind of
Hmm.
simple recipe for integration.
Hmm. Yeah, I do want to just say that um, the heart and the gut don't need to wait for one's life to be in this. It doesn't necessarily come in a certain order. It can correspondingly be be attuned to your heart while you're gaining ground in your life, your gut intelligence, so they can be, accessed throughout. Is my point, throughout. Um, so to not wait, don't wait for everything to be down pat for other ways of operating to come forward. Um, so the one thing we haven't brought up, because it's inherent within that love and opening to that and self-care and all that, and being in also in the resting more in the mystery, is being let me just turn my heat down, it's right here, warm enough. um is something that it's harder maybe for men, maybe not only men, but it's vulnerability. And there's so much to um, the power of vulnerability, because it's unsettled, it unseats us, and we're not so much in control when we're letting ourselves be vulnerable. But vulnerability is the doorway to the unknown, because you're entering sort of this like, I don't know what I'm opening to when I relax fully, when I let go, really. So so you're going through a passageway of being vulnerable. being sort of vulnerable to the experience, right? That's my dog. It's okay. Um, so, so I would say that what ties everything together is making friends with vulnerability, because when we're vulnerable, we're more transparent. And being transparent, things can pass through us more easily. It's the opposite of what we ordinarily think, is that we have to protect ourselves and have, you know, always be boundaried. And boundaries are good, but but there's something that gets stopped when we are putting up a shield to meeting another, and a shield to ourselves, of accessing deeper places inside of us, more empty places where potentiality lives, mystery lives. So vulnerability is a power, and it's kind of the antithesis of what we've been trained to believe, especially as for men. I think that being vulnerable is a sign of weakness. You open your guard up, you can be attacked. I mean, there's a lot to all of that, but there's a place and time to really work on letting go defenses. That's what vulnerability is letting go of defenses, and opening to soul. That's how that takes place.
I'd almost kind of like, it feels like kind of putting your shoulders back and your heart first to be
Yeah, I like
vulnerable.
that.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, shoulders back.
yeah,
Because what happens when we're feeling protective is our shoulders go forward and we're protecting our
yeah.
hearts, right? You can see people over time just collapse, right? And it's because there's a fear of being so vulnerable, right? So when we open to the sensation of what vulnerability is, we're becoming masterful of the fact that we're not really in an insecure place when we're vulnerable. It's just a sensation, it's just a feeling.
And it makes me think it's kind of like the end goal of the mastery process, where you go from unconscious incompetence and you move through the stages to the end goal, which is you want to be competent in yourself in whatever game or situation, your daily flow, and you want to be able to do it unconsciously. And so if you're doing something and you've gotten to your sense of self, and you've like worked through, there's a lot that we've uncovered just in this one podcast together, which is a fraction of what covers in a lifetime of self-awareness and just listening to yourself, right? Your journey. It's almost like we're constantly kind of integrating new concepts and new pointers and new experiences to then slowly kind of finish with the vulnerability of, hey, just get on stage and just give it a go. Um,
Yeah.
get into life, if you will, right? Like as a soul, just show up and get into life. And I mean, it ends in a
Mhm.
very vulnerable position, right? The ending is vulnerable. It's the like
It
death
is.
is absolute vulnerability.
It's a portal to magic happening. I mean, you can tell that when people are being themselves and vulnerable, but also have mastery, that that's the magical ingredient that makes people really pay attention, because because one can resonate, one can feel connected. We connect in vulnerability. We can connect in mastery in a way, but we're all masters in different ways. But vulnerability, that's something we all know. And being vulnerable and undefended, which is another word for it, and really being authentic, that's the way to be authentic. You can't get to authenticity without entering vulnerability. But guess what? That has a vibration and an energy signature that is um, so needed and welcomed and desired in the world. And people pay attention because guess what it does? It invites them to be able to be themselves as well. So we're then modeling something, and then one can meet and connect in a way that is just less protected and defended, because that's not a wonderful way to meet.
No, it sounds more like a child-like way to meet. It sounds like people who are at home, like how we mentioned it, we started the feeling of yourself when you're around your friends, around your family. And you wouldn't want
Mhm.
to embrace somebody who's got a sword drawn and their shield up.
Yeah. You can see, you can totally feel it. You probably feel more at home with the people who feel more at home because they're vibrating that because we're all sending energy signatures, little radio waves. We really are.
Yeah.
And if we're more at home and saying it's safe being here at home, it our animal nature responds and says that, oh, this is safe
Hmm.
to be myself. I can be myself more. And there's sort of a relaxation. And then there's this opening that naturally happens to to including more of what we are versus this bound up self that only goes this far. Then we get to open to the more unbounded kind of self that's vaster, vaster. And there's more access to intelligence when it's more opened up.
And when I kind of imagine how this feels, I've had moments of these kind of experiences, and I have a part of my mind that always wants to kind of granularize where's the, how does that pattern feel and look and sense. But my experience with these kind of high moments where your absolute mastery is at an all-time high, but
Mm,
you've like eloquently said it, your vulnerability is equally just like at an all-time high. So it's like mastery meets vulnerability means mastery meets authenticity. It it's almost like you can't even label where your mind or sense of self is in that type of space, because it's almost like you're breathing across the dimensions of yourself, and you're almost, I think, turned
yeah.
on a different configuration of your brain, as if your neural
Uh-huh.
pathways are lighting up in a different way, where you're no
Mhm.
longer in the subjective, here I am, I'm looking at myself, oh my gosh, what am I going to say next? Or like pre-planning. You're in an absolute state of the mastery of knowing and being here now while simultaneously being vulnerable.
Oh, beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's like expanded awareness. So awareness of your is expanded, and Einstein would point to that as being his source of creativity is the mystery. He said that, that's what his source of his brilliance came from. So then you're expanding, awareness and consciousness is expanding into what's more possible, hmm beyond the known.
Beyond the known. How does this relate with like your aura? And when you enter into this in moments where like in social gatherings, there's this
Mm.
absolute like field of energy that somebody has where they're in such a vulnerable state while simultaneously being incredibly grounded and at mastery within themselves. And it's almost like this like energy that's just like shooting from them, that it's like it's alluring, it's powerful, um it's almost like the state of what the gurus have, like being in the room with Eckhart Tolle, being in the room with any great sage or guru. Is that the kind of underlying mechanic that they're doing? Is this app, they've touched this homeness in them, that's the vulnerable side, or is there something else that they're able to relate with that's expanding that aura and helping them communicate to the field of potentiality and receiving back from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're honing in on it. Yeah. So just to be clear, the doorway to it is vulnerability, but it becomes second nature. Okay, so that the walls of defense have are no longer there. Okay, and because it's seen that safety lives in the the unmoving place that presence and spirit really is. That's where real safety lives. So, so there's this trust and relaxation that is always there. It's a abiding peace, really. That's what peace that surpasses understanding. You know,
The peace that
that's
passeth
it.
all understanding.
Surpasses, yeah. So it's living as that. Okay, it's not like until that happens, one learns how to access it. You know, through different means. So those beings that you're talking about, they're they are emanations of that. They're already living solidly as that. And then they co-arising with it is the manifested. So then there's this, you know, talking to a room full or an auditorium, whatever it is, and of people, and it that transmission of that peace is palpable, especially for those who are dropping their defenses in order to receive it, because it's sort of an agreed upon thing. It doesn't arise all by itself. It's like a, let's just say Eckhart Tolle on his own at home. His auric field is probably just where it is. It's unbounded, but it's probably just he's just doing his thing. And then when he goes to an auditorium like that, it expands, and it does with me too when I meet with groups and my retreats and so on. It does that as well, and it just expands, and it includes everyone there. And within that expansion, there's because it's not limited. It's no longer when there's been a deep abiding awakening to our nature, true nature. It's no longer limited. It's inclusive. It's part of you. You're now then as one with the whole. It's an interesting dichotomy. So when you're with a bunch of others or anyone for that matter, it's like that boundary of the body is no longer just placed here. It expands and is inclusive, includes the whole. And so then the whole and it's a give and take. So the whole responds, and so then it's sort of this the conversation between the two, a transmissional energy. So the more that the mirror cells of the group are responding and are open and relaxing and receiving this, whatever this is from whoever it responds in turn. So then it becomes this kind of give and take, this beautiful circle, really. And that can happen just being within nature. Doesn't require it. It's like with people, with trees, with rocks, with things like that. There can be this, it's a communication that is beyond the separate self.
Do you think everybody or anybody has that power, that latent gift within them to be able to communicate as that bridge?
Yeah, I think that everybody has the potential, but it's like because I think we all are essentially in a way the same. We're not. It's not a special trait, but it's something that takes practice, and it's just like do to be a really fine violin player, it takes many years of practice and focus and desire, right?
Mhm.
Focus, desire. So I think that to come back home to yourself takes focus and intention and good pointing, and then from there it naturally evolves. That one, maybe some people are more adept, because we all have our strengths and like soul qualities, let's say. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody's supposed to be talking and being in an auditorium or a group of people in that way. That might not even be their desire. They may be all the way home within themselves, but have zero desire. I've met plenty, zero desire.
Yeah.
That's not their path. For some reason, with me, what I do is true for me to do. So it's like people tend to, in the end, then at that point, do what's true for them. Like I know someone who just likes to be writing their books, just they don't have any desire to meet with groups. I love meeting with groups. I love the synergy that takes place. And that feeds me. It's a nourishing thing. And that's your yes, right? Your yes comes forth. Where it's like, yes, this feels that it'll nourish you, and in turn that's the right direction.
Hmm. Yeah, listening
Hmm.
to your inner soul and um, like the unmanifested giving you the thumbs up, like, hey, you're finding interest in this. Uh, and I love being in person. I think there is an energy that may be the guru or this divine expansion, like your experience with groups or with Eckhart Tolle's or Sadhgurus. I think there is something where by yourself, you can have your own degree of experience, but something happens when you're in relation with each other. Even our communication
Yeah.
today, like us talking together, there's this like very dynamic, like we said before, yin yang. It's like this is give and take. Like we're tuning into each other. We're having a
Hmm.
state of sympathy, of feeling each other's energy, and
Hmm.
open hearted, with an open heart, exploring in conversation and these ideas of like of things opening up. And I think it's just it's the richness of conversation that
I agree.
people relating with each other opens new doorways than when you're isolated by yourself.
Yeah, I'm really appreciating our conversation. It's enlivening, and that's like these key things. What makes you come alive? What makes you come alive is a great question. Um, that put your attention more and more on what makes you come alive, and this is enlivening, and it's so great also to have different backgrounds with people and different points of view, and like what's interesting. It sparks something because we don't want to always be in the known, in the same in the same road, always the same lane,
Hmm.
because then it's like then our myopic vision, it will be this way, tunnel vision. So how do you open that up to take in other views? And it expands. It's expanding, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Something I thought about earlier was I think I heard from somebody, I can't remember the name of the person, but on YouTube, he talked about that everybody has within them like a prophet and this kind of like inner spiritual connection. And I agree
Mhm.
with you that I don't know if everybody's meant to become like an outward messiah, an outward spiritual religious figure, but I do believe that we all within us have the capacity for being in tune with our truth, with feeling aligned. And what a time right now, I think, in the world for anybody listening to just evaluate, like you're saying, like what makes you feel alive, and to take the maybe you can offer some guidance, like what are some other ways to identify what brings that life into you and makes you feel um, special in a way to be able to follow.
It's a journey. It really is. It's a journey. It's a personal self journey, you know. Um, one has to, I think, find it interesting and a value to be on this personal self journey of going interiorly. So it's not only an expression of the exterior, but that it's like that's what yogis and yoginis did, is they focused interiorly. Buddha, Christ, all of them. It was an interior journey. All the prophets and saints. It was an interior journey, and that's because there was curiosity, and that's super important. Is the ingredient of curiosity and wondering. Like, I wonder, who am I? What am I? What is this reality? These kind of age-old questions, and to not look for the answers on the outside, but to look inside and see, you know, what is this about? Why am I here? These really questions that little kids have, even, that we might have forgotten. And what they open, it's not like you're going to get the absolute answer, right? It's more like it opens the door to walking through the doorway into the mystery that contains massive amounts of information if we were needing it. But it's just that doorway is so important. So being curious about what's taking place here, like what you are, and also then possibly needing to do some work, some healing work, in order to be able to get beyond the protection and the layers of protection, that the sentries that say, no, don't go there, you're going to get hurt. And it's because hurt lives here already. There's some wounds, some unmet, undigested material that we all contain, some more than others, right? So there's that kind of journey that one goes on of caring about oneself enough to harmonize the body and mind and spirit, and meet content inside that is out of sync, that's been hurt. And the reason I say that is because we can't just spiritually bypass all that. We don't have to. And by the way, don't need to be perfected. We're never perfected, but even opening up to the imperfection, that we're not going to be perfect, and that even then we're whole, even in our imperfections. That's wholeness includes imperfection.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a journey, okay? And not everyone is going to want to take that journey. I know plenty of people who don't. They do it to a degree. It just depends, how deeply do you want to go into exploring yourself. How there's an astronaut? Well, I call it an intronaut. So you're going internally. And this wing of the bird is the intronaut. It takes courage, vulnerability, willingness, self-care, love, good pointing, and a desire to be live a fulfilled life of wholeness, of what this human being, human and your being. This is the human bird wing, and this is the being, your beingness, your nature, your true nature, your spirit self, your beingness. So being a whole entity requires this as well. At some point in your life, or congruently, just setting aside time every day for contemplation, do a little healing work, do some kind of work, that body work on your, that you get, something to help you be able to be here and not want to run away from the uncomfortableness. And I'll just say this, is that one of the reasons people don't want to do this is because it can be, initially, it can be very uncomfortable, because not residing here, we get disassociated from the pain that we contain. And so we get that drive of being dissociated will continue to be outward leaning. And remember, I said in the beginning, take the backward step in the one seat is a beginning to not being disassociated from what lives here.
Yeah. And I mean, I would just ask anybody listening to take one step back and to take the one seat.
Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Susanna, this has been an incredible conversation with you. it's light up
Yeah, same.
parts of my being that I don't get to really talk to people uh,
Yeah.
at all about this type of work, this inner intranaut, this inner engineering, this um, exploration into the dynamic self. And I
Mm.
think you have an incredible understanding and a gift for communicating that journey
Oh,
for
thank
the
you.
self. So thank you so much for the life that you've lived and for being open
Oh.
to coming up on this conversation with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's really lovely meeting you, and your openness and willingness to explore and, bring out certain things that, help me to go more deeply. So, I appreciate the synergy.
Yeah. I hope we can do
Yeah.
this again. I would love that.
I would love that too. You're hearing my dog slurp at the very end, her water. Yeah, I would love to do it again. It's a great conversation to open up, and I love your where you're coming from, your point of view, and the audience of where they're coming from. It's really great to mix things up sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any where special or you'd like to mention for people to come and find you?
Um, well, I have a website. You're probably gonna link it, susannemarie.org,
Sure.
Susanne. But anyway, yeah, I have monthly online meetings, courses. I mentor people one-on-one. I like to meet people where they're at, by the way. That's my goal, um, to where they're at, and then read between the lines of where it is that they would like to go and support them in that. Yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I do.
Well, if you're
Yeah.
interested, please reach out to Susanna. I'll make sure that the link is below and your contact info so that they can find you.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's so lovely meeting you.
Nice to meet you too, Susanna. You have a great day. All right.
Yeah, you too.
See ya.